Right, so Parliament is getting dissolved on the 30th of May before the Tories manage to dissolve any more of this country. And finally, the chance to get this most corrupt government of my living memory certainly out of power. And, well, pray God we make sure that this time it is for good. But with Keir Starmer waiting in the wings to take over, putting an offer to the country barely any different to the Tories, insultingly so, that we're hoping we're ridding ourselves of, will it truly be the case we've got the Tories out if we just let Starmer in? Or is it nowhere near the sealed deal the 20-plus point poll leads Labour currently enjoy think it is? And can we actually achieve the only meaningful result that could bring about the changes we actually need from this election, which will be a hung Parliament? Right, so if Rishi Sunak wanted to come out with a fitting slogan on the steps of 10 Downing Street tonight, he could coin the phrase and walk in the footsteps of his red Tory predecessor Tony Blair and go with "things can only get wetter" as the heavens opened up and absolutely drenched him, whilst music from outside attempted to drown him out. The rat comparisons will no doubt come out on social media, Sunak very much looking like a drowned one by the time he finished droning on, when all we really wanted to hear from him was confirmation of what the media was spouting beforehand, that had got our hopes up, that US Independence Day is the date, 4th of July. Here's hoping it will prove to be a permanent Independence Day for the UK, from ever electing another Conservative government ever again. There's a multi-million pound media room in that place now, thanks to Boris Johnson, isn't there, in 10 Downing Street? It's not like Sunak had to get soaked after all, but heck, who didn't just enjoy it, just a tiny little bit? Anyway, his speech, of course, was peppered with hilarious hypocrisy, and frankly, there's very little he could say to convince anyone to like the man, let alone give him their vote now. He's done. He knows it. He's apparently calling this election early, seemingly determined to run away from it as long as possible as he was, because apparently now he isn't enjoying the job so much, and perhaps he'd get more job satisfaction if he wasn't constantly finding someone here or a group of people there to blame for all the ills in the country. It's not much in the job satisfaction department, is it? He made numerous claims in his speech, all of which were nonsense. I picked out a few, though. Claiming he was responsible for restoring economic stability was a good one, when we've literally just now climbed out of recession and economic growth has been choked off completely for years under the Tories, barely registering anything, because incomes have been slammed, benefits cut, people's spending power has plummeted. So we haven't spent. They have made their money work. The rich have been on the make for years. They just offshore all of their money, though, don't they? It doesn't work either, therefore. It's all completely backwards. He called it economic stability. He's impoverished the nation, but having just made a sweet extra £121 million for himself in the last tax year, being one of the elite, the impossibly rich, those that make money and get wealthier where the rest of us suffer, he hasn't the faintest notion of what it is like to struggle, what it has been like to struggle for 14 years of the Tories, and is, as someone from the ordinary working class, the biggest reason not to back him. He simply doesn't know what it is like to walk a single day in your shoes. Our energy bills sky high. He blamed that squarely on Putin instead of acknowledging that he basically chose to subsidise the companies scalping us when bills were too high for most of us to afford, instead of taking them back under national control and ending the absurdity of those shareholder dividends, because God forbid they don't get their cut, even as many of us were choosing between heating and eating. But Russia doesn't excuse his inaction. He attacked China for being what? Too competitive, it turns out. It was your party, taking turns with red Tories, that decimated manufacturing in this country and kept it there. It's never been restored. Stop being so wet. Oh, sorry. Whoops. What a foolish choice of words on my part. You couldn't stop being so wet, could you? It was chucking down while you were saying all this, wasn't it? Inflation is down, though, he said. Yep, great, we've had that news this morning, but that simply means the rate of prices going up has slowed, not that they aren't still going up. You had zip, zero, nada to do with that, yet you're still claiming credit for it. It also isn't down as much as the Bank of England were forecasting, so is that your doing too? Can't have it both ways. Migration continues to be weaponised, as does immigration. He's stopped the boats when he hasn't. He's getting people off the ground and to Rwanda when he's literally having to pay them to get them to go. He attacks Putin again over global stability. He was careful to only mention Middle East tensions rather than pick sides today, so perhaps those arrest warrants that are being threatened of being issued against Hamas and Israel leaders has given him pause for thought on his own potential complicity in that. He's talked of record NHS funding when it's the wrong argument to be making. There might be more money going in, but with so much outsourcing after 14 years of the Tories, privatisation of the NHS by another name, so much of that money too is ending up in shareholders' pockets. It's just that the shareholders in this case get away with sporting the NHS logo. It's a con. The money isn't going into the service. It is making rich people richer again. Same shit, different day. He's a Tory. He claims we've harnessed the opportunities of Brexit. I must have missed them. Just months after more import and export red tape came in as well, driving prices in the supermarkets up again. He said he has prioritised energy over the environment and net zero and said it like it was a good thing, when all it really did was spell out that he and his party are just a danger to the planet. He hailed welfare reform, which, given how lethal it has proven for far too many in this country, should land him and many in his government behind bars, not elected back into power. He is the man of bold action. He is the man with the plan, he said, despite having no discernible plan to benefit the country, just to enrich other people like himself, and too often that has actually been himself when the name Infosys comes up time and again in relation to government contracts, the family firm, of course, of his wife. But flip all of that, and then you come to Keir Starmer, who launched his campaign and was televised as well on the news by repeating all of the same tired, dull, boring sound bites we're sick and tired of hearing from him. Yet he had the brass neck to stand there and call himself the change candidate. Vote for change by voting for Labour, he said in his snorefest of a speech, when he offers literally nothing different to the Tories. I was Director of Public Prosecutions. He said it. The drinking game begins again, folks. I ran the Crown Prosecution Service, he said. That's it. Have another shot. As if we haven't heard all of this 1,000 times already. By the end of his speech, he would have been bladdered. That isn't change. That's more of the same. And according to those who worked under you there, you were unpopular, and your reforms there were pointless. He repeddled his 6 fixes that he recently announced, which I covered in a video just the other day, so I won't repeat them again here. But they are all a complete scam and a con. He claims he wants to serve, that his are the party of service. Yet never has there been any sign that Starmer is anything other than an authoritarian liar. He binned everything he stood for. He's had more relaunches than Cher has had facelifts, and still people can't stand him. There's a reason for that. You can't trust him, and nobody thinks much of the Tory lightism that is all he is selling to the country now. The one honest thing Sunak said in his speech was that Starmer will do or say anything to get into power. He lusts for it, and will do or say, ditch or scrap whatever he thinks he has to get elected. Service. The only person he is serving is himself, and ensuring that nothing actually, for this country, if Labour get elected, ever changes. Therefore, the goal here, the best hope to come out of this general election for the country, is a hung parliament, as we saw in 2010. Labour will be the largest party of that. There is little doubt. Just how decimated the Tories are going to be is completely open to conjecture. But of course, we all hope they are going to be basically rinsed. But they can be denied a majority, Labour, and the frighteners have been put on them as local elections bore themselves out. Labour's headline poll leads are nonsense. They aren't reflective of the whole country. There are areas where Labour should be scoring big wins and instead have lost by-elections and have lost councillors and are not gaining those Tory votes necessarily that Starmer has been chasing. The only consistent thing about him in 4 years is pursuit of Tory votes, along with his unequivocal support for Israel, of course. He's lost Labour ones along the way. In fact, he's spurned Labour voters, suspended Labour members and expelled them too in many cases. Little wonder, therefore, that according to Labour list, Labour still don't have candidates for more than 100 seats. You better get some parachutes strapped onto some Starmerites fast. Heck, Paul Mason might still be in with a chance at this rate. Independent candidates rallying for change are springing up all over the country. That vote on the 4th of July could well be an Independence Day for independent candidates. But time is very much now against them. The Green Party has surged again in local elections, and they are chasing more MPs and more power to their elbow. Labour lost a safe seat to George Galloway and his Workers' Party of Great Britain, who are also targeting more seats. And yet all the mainstream media can talk about is the threat to the Tories posed by Reform UK, whose only MP is a defector set to very much lose his seat. We'll bid farewell to the Neanderthal Lee Anderson. Oh, how very sad we will be. And of course, they won just two council seats nationwide in the local elections. They are a non-entity party, of people for whom Sunak is too much of a lefty and deserve a wide berth and not national mainstream recognition that they don't deserve. This is a general election where real change is going to be hard to achieve, but it'll come from embracing alternatives and avoiding mainstream parties of all colours, because whether that rosette is blue, red or yellow, it will still be a bloody Tory. Will this country choose differently, or will we have another 5 years of the same, be it Sunak or Starmer in charge? Well, it might not even be Starmer if the campaign that began yesterday by Andrew Feinstein takes off, the former South African ANC MP turned arms sales campaigner who has lived in Starmer's patch for the last 23 years and is now ready to re-enter politics in a bid to stop Starmer from reaching power, even if Labour happens to. Find out all about that story in this video recommendation here, though no more donations please because of the election being called. Spending restrictions now apply. And well, Feinstein hit target in a day. Says it all about Starmer then, doesn't it? And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.